That is way too much Dan mayonnaise.
Oh, man. All
Poor
right.
Tigger.
That was a funny one, man.
Thank God it wasn't Eeyore.
All right. Well, thank you for that donkey today.
Donkey Today is brought to you by the law office of Michael S. Lamonsoff. Don't be...
And we may die. Another GPU is launching. But does it perform? Where does it perform? How does it stack up to the unwashed masses of gently used crypto mining cards that are currently flooding eBay? Does this card even make sense in a world where buying an NVIDIA RTX 2060 on eBay costs $500 US? A 3-year-old card selling for $150 more than it launched at? I mean, AMD says the suggested retail price of these cards is $379, but you know, the basic shipping costs and tariffs, and it's just all out of whack. I mean, it seems unlikely that this card would show up at the price that they're quoting in quantity for long. I mean, it would disrupt the entire market. I mean, look, this card's got the goods, I'll tell you that. It will basically work as advertised. It's actually capable of much more than 1080p, except for one scenario, which we'll talk about. And that was kind of also touted as a 1080p gaming card. Then the RX 580 launched a little over a year later in 2017. Also, you know, a great solution for 1080p. Team Green, NVIDIA, they launched the 2060 in 2019 at $349. And that was also meant to be a 1080p gaming card. And the 6600 XT can do 1080p at nearly the highest settings, 140 FPS in GTA 5. If you go much past 140 FPS in GTA 5, it actually breaks the engine. They didn't design the game to run that fast. I mean, yeah, it is like 10 years old. And these new cards have cool new features like ray tracing and variable rate shading and FRS, although to be fair, FRS actually works on pretty much everything. Fidelity FX Super Resolution, now for your obsolete card as well. And the old game is not taking advantage of any of that new cool stuff that these cards can do. That's unfortunate because there's a lot of older games that are going to show up in benchmarks and it's like, yeah, 140 FPS in GTA 5. Look, you can play those older AAA games at 1440p or even 4K. 60 FPS 4K on this card with a little bit of an overclock. This one struggles a little bit more because it can't overclock as good, but 4K 60 with GTA 5, yeah, you can do that. Fortnite also averaged 58 FPS at 4K high at stock settings on both of these cards. You can overclock this one a little bit and get even a little bit beyond 4K. Fortnite, it's bonkers that these cards can do that. Now, our test system is based on the Ryzen 5950X, which is not super realistic because more than likely you're going to put these in a system that's going to cost around $1,000, assuming that you get these for the MSRP of, you know, $379 and on up. You know, obviously the Red Devil's going to cost a little more than that. The AAA titles, Tomb Raider, Borderlands 3, Deus Ex, and more, yeah, I don't really actually recommend 4K. It's just fun to look at that. You know, your performance is going to be around 30 FPS in some of those titles. But 1440p and below with higher visual fidelity settings, maybe not maxed out, but high and still pretty good, these actually work really well. For comparisons, I wanted to do comparisons against the RTX 2060. I can't believe that card is selling for $500 on eBay. But, you know, it's like, hey, how does it stack up? Because that card launched at $349. See what I'm doing? So the question really is AMD going to be able to sell enough of these cards to enter the market to disrupt that $500 used price? Now, with ray tracing, Godfall at 1440p, with this card, without FSR, I don't know that I recommend that. 1080p with ray tracing and Godfall, pretty good performance. And then you can layer on technologies like FSR to get you back up to 1440p. These cards are very impressive 1080p when we're talking about ray tracing, but they are less impressive because the fall off is more than I expected. As good as the performance is at 1080p, it doesn't translate to 1440p when we're talking about ray tracing. But again, if you're not playing games that take advantage of those features, then you'll be able to run those games without those features at much higher than expected performance, I guess, for a card of this class. Even with ray tracing, you can get about 80 FPS in Godfall at epic quality, and over 100 FPS in Doom Eternal on ultra quality. And all of the ray tracing was tested at 1080p. If you're comparing this to like a 3060, Doom Eternal is a little better on the 3060.
Time to help people customize and save with Liberty Mutual.
Back on this property. So for me to log the truck, it doesn't matter. He doesn't want you on. It doesn't matter.
Talking about us.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He doesn't want you guys back here. And to verify that, I need your names so that if you do show up again, you can then go to jail. Okay?
So
What is your name before I put you all in handcuffs and take you all to jail? Then you're gonna.
I ain't gonna to jail, man.
Okay. What is your name?
Y'all ain't got no right name.
Yeah, we do. We waiting. Right.
Are they being detained, officer?
Yes, they are.
Under what penal code?
What's your badge number? What's your badge number?
Good job.
Hey, what's your badge number? What's your name, sir? You have the right to give me your badge number. Yes, you do.
It's policy.
I'm trying to identify these gentlemen, and they refuse to identify themselves.
Hey, don't say it like that. Badge number, please. Badge number.
Is there any way that, since I'm gonna draw, y'all can't release them to me, and I can take them off the premises
Because we
right now?
can't verify that you are the parent or guardian. We can't do so. So again, I'm going to ask again before you all want to. Does that make sense? What is your name? We can't just release.
Well, hold on, let me talk to them. Let's talk to them.
But if they weren't part of the confusion, then I don't understand what's going on.
I told you that multiple times.
The officer alleges that the manager of the building wants the boys removed from the property, but the boys and the bystanders claim that they were not involved in the previous disturbance. Despite these assertions, the officers do not seem to be interested in investigating the situation any further, and simply continue to demand that the teens identify themselves. However, police best practices require that responding officers conduct thorough preliminary investigations that include interviewing witnesses to accurately determine suspects. According to a publication on eyewitness evidence from the U.S. Department of Justice, quote, "The methods used by the preliminary investigating officer have a direct impact on the amount and accuracy of the information obtained throughout the investigation. The preliminary investigating officer shall obtain, preserve, and use the maximum amount of accurate information from the scene. As part of the preliminary investigation, officers should, quote, obtain and accurately document and preserve information from the witness or witnesses. Information obtained from the witness can corroborate other evidence, e.g., physical evidence, accounts provided by other witnesses in the investigation. While it is clear in this case that the officers failed to follow these best practices, it's important to note that police officers do not have a legal obligation